Mr. Masse.
Chair, and thank you for the witnesses being here. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the SDTC employees that were whistleblowers that did this work. They also had to live with their families, having to go through their reputations dragged through the mud, publicly maligned and humiliated by SDTC spokespeople, not backed up by the minister with regards to the real allegations, having to live through the Raymond Chabot Grant Thornton report that basically tried to dismiss them, having to them release the Osler report, which again proved them to be correct. They had to live through not having a union. They had to live through losing salary, pensions, benefits. They had to live through putting non-disclosure agreements together. They had to live through the corruption at the board of directors that actually intimidated them individually. And we have two sets of witnesses here today, in my opinion. The first set is the ones that want to cover their asses, and the second one is the group that want the public spigot to be turned on. And nobody would actually raise the issue of the workers in going forward on this. I'm absolutely, utterly disgusted because this Auditor General report would not even have been done from those workers. And I have emails from their workers, some that had to leave their position during a pandemic with no job because of the culture of intimidation and fear that was set there. So we're supposed to somehow set things up because we can magically find proper board members right now that don't get the benefit of being assigned to a type of accountability that hasn't been done. And at the same time, nobody really cares about them. All the resources and time, and tomorrow will be in the House of Commons as well, and nobody could talk about them and their families. Nobody can talk about how do we go forward to protect them more. At least that's one thing I've been asking for repeatedly. If any of the witnesses here followed any of the testimony, they would know
Chair.
That I brought this up multiple times.
One second, sorry, Mr. Masse.
I don't mean to interrupt. I know Mr. Massey's on a roll here, but I wanted to ask him to maybe stop yelling because I know that the interpreters are sensitive to that and that there's injuries that can happen. I know he's very passionate. I get that, but maybe he can either sit back from the microphone or stop yelling. Just to protect our interpreters.
Mr. Turnbull, I was just about to tell the clerk to make sure that if there are issues with for the interpreters with the level of volume from the members or the witnesses, to let me know and I'll intervene. So I note it, but you may continue, Mr. Masse.
Thank you. I'll let my record for supporting workers and labour stand its course versus a parliamentary secretary any day of the week. And I would tell you that on top of what's taking place, well, he thinks it's funny. He's been smirking the entire time I was walking, so maybe that's why I've raised my voice, because he sat there smirking through me raising the issues of these workers. And that's an issue that I want to raise now with Mr. MacArthur. What particular has your organizations and companies done to help these workers that have come forward? You haven't mentioned in your 5 recommendations anything for them, but has any of the companies that have been receiving SDT funding, any of the groups and organizations, Mr. Khan, that have actually come together and said we should do something for the workers and their families? I didn't hear any of that. Has any of that been discussion? Have you heard of that? Or just basically just restart everything and let the actions have taken place where people have lost jobs, reputations, or are now clinging on to employment as they have to go to another agency?
Thank you for your question. I would say that we're here representing the Canadian clean tech sector, and we're trying to represent the workers that are in those companies, in your riding and other people's ridings, that are being impacted by the lack of funding that's been frozen and has interrupted those companies. Obviously, we're very empathetic to the situation the workers at SDTC have been through. Some of them are friends.
Yeah, and you know what? You're not doing a good job of that, because your workers that you say you're representing right now, the only reason that they're not getting more projects and more movement right now is because a corrupt environment took place while everybody stood by and watched. And nobody in this term of this process has offered any solutions or importance related to this matter publicly or elsewhere. I've checked for that. So if you want your workers that you represent, maybe you could, your organizations can show some support for the workers that actually